When Ken and I got married 3 years ago, we built our dream home together. It was the most significant purchase I've ever made, and we were both determined to cherish it as a symbol of our new life together. Our home was everything we had hoped for: the fresh scent of new construction, Ken's warm smile as he showed me around, and the spacious living room bathed in morning sunlight streaming through large windows. We had always dreamed of creating a space where we could truly relax and enjoy each other's company. I was particularly involved in the design details, from the built-in kitchen to the placement of the windows. On sunny Sunday afternoons, the light through the windows was just perfect, and Ken and I would unwind and take naps in that lovely glow. Brewing coffee in the kitchen filled the house with its comforting aroma, marking my moments of pure happiness. But achieving these blissful moments came at a cost. It took a lot of hard work to afford the mortgage, and I took pride in our ability to manage it. Ken shared that pride, of course. However, just a month after we moved in, I received an unexpected call from my mother-in-law, Pam, who lived separately from us. "You and Ken have finished building your home, right?" she'd asked. "Now that it's done, I'd like to move in with you. Living alone in this rundown place is taking a toll on my health." Pam is single and relies on welfare, and while we hadn't been very close, my interactions with her had been brief and mostly limited to pre-marriage greetings. This request was challenging. As newlyweds, it was difficult for me to imagine suddenly sharing our new home with Pam. "I understand, Anna. I know how challenging it would be for you to have my mother living with us, so I'll speak to her and let her know that we can't accommodate her request. Thank you for understanding." Fortunately, Ken has always been considerate of my feelings and truly understands me. He firmly turned down Pam's request to move in with us. However, 2 years later, when Ken and I had our first baby, Pam saw another opportunity and brought up the idea once more. "Isn't it tough to manage the baby and housework on your own?" she'd asked. "If I moved in with you, I would definitely help with both. It's a great opportunity for me, so please consider letting me live with you. Taking care of a newborn and managing household chores is indeed demanding, and I would appreciate any help we could get. Plus, since I plan to return to work eventually, having additional support would be beneficial." "What do you think?" I asked Ken. "It might be helpful to have someone assist us." Ken agreed that having extra help could be a good idea, provided that Pam followed through on her promise. When I finally agreed to let Pam move in, I made it clear that her help with the baby and housework was a condition. Pam was thrilled and took her responsibilities seriously. She managed the baby and the chores diligently, offering to handle tasks like laundry and looking after the baby while I was out. "Okay, I'll take care of the laundry and fold the clothes," she said. "Thank you," I replied. "And while you're out for groceries, I'll look after the baby," she continued. "Oh, who's a good boy?" "You are," Pam cooed to the baby. Her support was a relief, and I was grateful for her help. I honestly didn't expect Pam to be so helpful, and I felt a bit guilty for underestimating her. For the first week, she was a great help around the house and with the baby, and I was grateful for her support. But that didn't last long. Soon Pam began slacking off. When Ken was away, she would lounge around and ignore my requests to care for our son. This became a frequent issue, and my trust in Pam started to wane. Her commitment to household chores quickly diminished, and I could no longer rely on her to look after the baby or manage the housework. I decided it was time to address the situation with her. Despite Ken's multiple attempts to talk to her, she dismissed his concerns. "You know I'm doing my best too," I told him, feeling the weight of the situation. "Anna is just being too strict. But we need her to help us properly. That's why we invited her to live with us." Pam reacted poorly whenever Ken confronted her, either blaming me or crying to gain his sympathy. She continued to stay at our home, but her attitude towards our son became increasingly negative. "Oh, he's crying again. He's so loud," she would complain. "Hurry up and make him stop." Her lack of care and growing frustration with the baby made me anxious. I worried about leaving our son with her and wished for her to move out as soon as possible. Honey, I'm really afraid for our son's safety with Pam around. I confided in Ken. I think it's best if she leaves. Ken agreed and began making arrangements to find a new place for Pam. Soon our living room was cluttered with her belongings. I had to keep a constant watch over our son to prevent him from getting hurt by her things. Despite our repeated warnings, Pam's behavior didn't improve. We were determined to persuade her to move out and restore some peace to our home. I was in a panic when I realized that our son was missing from his room where he was supposed to be sleeping. Frantically searching, I found Pam outside with him. "What are you doing? How could you take our son out without our permission?" I demanded. "I just wanted to show him off a little," Pam replied dismissively. "You shouldn't worry so much. If I took him out like this, people might talk, but it's not a big deal. And stop shouting at me." I was stunned that Pam had taken our son without informing me and seemed completely unapologetic. Instead, she became defensive. Ken and I were both furious, and we decided to ask Pam to leave our home immediately. It had been a year since that incident. Our son had turned 1 and was starting to walk. Then tragically, my husband was involved in an accident on his way home from work and passed away unexpectedly. I was devastated and lost for words, grappling with the sudden loss of Ken and the uncertainty of how to care for our young son alone. At Ken's funeral, my grief was overwhelming. Couldn't stop crying. In the midst of this heart attack, Pam approached me. "Hello, long time no see, Anna," she said, her tone strangely casual. I never imagined we'd see each other again under these circumstances. "Oh, Pam," I said, struggling to keep my emotions in check. I could only imagine the depth of Pam's grief, having lost her own son. The pain of losing Ken was immense, and I knew I needed to be strong for him. "It's just so sudden," managed to say through my tears. "Indeed," Pam replied. "Since the family house now belongs to my son, I assume I'll be getting it right. And could you also leave the furniture?" I was taken aback. It felt incredibly inappropriate for Pam to bring up the house and its contents at a time like this. Couldn't understand why she was focusing on material things when we were both mourning such a profound loss. "What are you talking about?" I asked, bewildered. "The house cost $500,000 to build, and there's still a mortgage to be paid." "Oh, well, you're going to cover that, right?" she responded casually. I couldn't believe Pam was discussing the house and mortgage at Ken's funeral. "I'm not sure I want to talk about this right now," I said, trying to remain composed. "We're here to remember Ken." But Pam insisted it's important we address this now. "No, this is not the right time," I said firmly. "If you continue to behave like this, please leave immediately." I was fed up with Pam's insensitivity. We were at Ken's funeral, and it was unacceptable for her to be so focused on property issues while we were grieving. When I firmly told Pam to leave, she fell silent and walked away. I was left wondering what she was thinking, especially given the recent loss of her own son. After the funeral and cremation, I managed to calm down. I knew I couldn't stay sad forever. I needed to focus on working hard to provide for my son. I put him in daycare and returned to my job, juggling work, house chores, and childcare as best as I could. One day, after picking up my son from daycare, I was shocked to find all my belongings piled up in a dumpster near the entrance of my home. My clothes, desk, and work items were all thrown together in a huge heap. "What is going on here?" I demanded. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that some of my more valuable items, expensive clothes, accessories, the TV, and the large fridge, hadn't been discarded but were still there. As I tried to make sense of the situation, a mover approached me and began discussing a fee. Confused, I asked what this was about. "Oh, great timing. The The mover said, "Well, you live here, right? The cost of the move is..." It quickly became clear that Pam had hired the mover. The realization left me stunned and frustrated. What is Pam trying to do? Is she in my house right now? I had to enter, but the front door wouldn't open. Panic set in as I realized Pam might have changed the locks. Had she somehow gotten hold of my house key while I was preoccupied with Ken's funeral? Immediately called Pam. "What is the meaning of this, Pam? How dare you come into my house without permission and throw out my belongings without asking me first? There's nothing wrong with taking my son's things. You're no longer part of the family, so get out." "What are you talking about? Ken is gone, but you have no right to act this way. Get out before I report you for trespassing." Pam abruptly hung up the phone. I was infuriated by her selfishness and knew I had to find a way to reclaim my house. With my son crying and unable to stay outside forever, I decided it was best to go to a hotel or my parents' house for the time being. I asked the movers to store my belongings temporarily and left. A week later, I received a phone call from Pam, who sounded distressed. "Hey, the police are here and it looks like they're trying to make me leave the house. Please do something about it." I couldn't believe she had the audacity to call me for help after evicting me. Pam's selfishness was overwhelming. "I'm sorry, but I'm not your family anymore," I replied. "We've gone through a post-mortem divorce settlement. I can't assist you." Pam's behavior was appalling, and I was determined to sort things out and get my house back. "What do you mean by post-mortem divorce?" Pam asked, puzzled. "It's a legal procedure to sever ties with the relatives of my deceased husband," I explained. "Since I'm still legally Ken's spouse, I inherit the house. I've cut ties with you, so you have no right to live here or expect any support from me." "What? You know I have nothing, and yet you're kicking me out?" Pam protested. "Yes, I am," I replied firmly. "Since we're no longer family, I have no obligation to you." Pam sounded outraged. "But I took care of the baby. How can you be so ungrateful and cold?" It was clear that Pam didn't understand, or didn't want to acknowledge, how wrong her actions were. Her anger only confirmed my decision. "If that's how you feel," I said, "you can stay if you want, but you'll need to pay the mortgage in one lump sum." "What? You want me to pay the mortgage in full?" Pam was incredulous. "You don't need to pay the mortgage that's already been covered up to now. You're only responsible for the remaining amount. But be warned, it's a significant sum." Pam was taken aback. How could I possibly pay for a house that's only been built for 3 years in one installment? "Well, if you can't manage it, then the house is mine, and you, as someone who is no longer part of the family, will be reported for breaking and entering." I ended the call, feeling resolved. I knew I didn't need to explain to Pam that the mortgage was covered by insurance after Ken's passing. A few days later, when I finally managed to get back into the house, I found it in disarray. Furniture was damaged and my clothes were in a mess. I took photos and documented everything, noting the costs and the circumstances under which Pam had evicted me. Even though filing a claim might not result in a payout, having this evidence could be useful if Pam caused further trouble. Later, Pam contacted me, demanding a $1,000 fine for trespassing. Of course, I had no intention of paying her. I ignored Pam's request. How could she not see that I was the victim in all of this? There was no way I would pay her any money. 3 years later, Pam's inability to pay her fines led to her being found guilty of malicious actions, resulting in a 3-year prison sentence. Once her sentence was served, Pam reached out to me. "Please, I'm in serious trouble. I have nowhere to go and don't know what to do," she pleaded. She seemed to be using a payphone as her calls were frequently cut off, likely due to lack of funds. It was clear that she was reaching out to anyone she could, desperately seeking help. The apartment my husband had rented for her was long gone, and the family home Ken and I built had been sold, as I had feared Pam might return. I felt a sense of justice in knowing that Pam's situation was a direct consequence of her own actions. Pam, this is what you deserve. I have no obligation to help you, and I want you to stop bothering me. Live your life on your own, I told her firmly before ending the call. With that, I closed the chapter on Pam to determine to focus on raising my son to be strong and independent. I placed my hand on Ken's photo, holding it close with my son by my side. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel, and we hope to see you in our next video.